Test, test.
School District. It is Monday, August 9th. Mr. Brooks will record the members present or absent. Mr. Bundy is joining us via Zoom this evening. Next, I would invite all to please stand as we pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. We do have a couple of adjustments to the agenda. Mr. Jorgensen, would you want to address those at this time?
Yeah. Under request to hire, we would also add Josie Wolf, elementary paraprofessional, to replace Patty Zacek at $12.65 per hour. There's a correction also under the contract change. In Cassandra Grogan, it should be at assistant one-act play at level 4, and then it will be at $1,718 is the correct amount. And we also had some additional enrollments come in, so item number 14 for the open enrollment application, 22-1 through, we should now say through 22-8, because we had 3 additional come in.
So those are the adjustments that we have to our agenda this evening. At this point in time, I would entertain a motion for approval of the agenda as amended. Mrs. Kappeman.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Hanemichael. Further questions or discussion? Mr. Brooks, would you call the roll, please?
Nelson.
Aye.
Hanemichael.
Aye.
Schultz.
Aye.
Kappeman.
Aye.
Bundy.
Aye.
Avery.
Aye.
Farrell.
Aye. So declare that the amended agenda has been approved. Next is number 6 on our agenda, which is approval of our consent items, which are items 7 through 9. We have our minutes of our regular meeting that was held on July 12th. We had a special board meeting on the 16th of July, and we also had a special board meeting on the 26th. So we have 3 sets of minutes. Mr. Nelson, Mr. Hanemichael, and myself reviewed the bills. Anything, gentlemen, that we saw out of the ordinary? And again, as usual, all of our financials are posted for everyone to see. Then on to item number 9, Mr. Jorgensen.
Under personnel actions, we have a number of different things tonight. Resignation, Morgan Police Custodian, and Austin Olson as grounds maintenance. Under hires, we have Josie Wolf, elementary para, to replace Patty Zacek at $12.65 an hour. Tara Grayson, high school para, to replace Melody Gross at $12.65 an hour. Tracy Ferber, middle school para, to replace Heidi Comas at $12.65 an hour. Krista Tuninder, full-time kitchen staff, $13.10 per hour. Jewel Grant, part-time kitchen staff at $12.30 per hour. Gloria Black, special ed driver, $15.30 per hour. Dina Smithers, special ed driver, $13 an hour. Richard Wolf, special ed driver, $13 an hour. Rob Graham, head tennis, level 3, $3,223. Mitchell Brooks, assistant, freshman basketball, level 3, $3,223. It's to replace Ashley Bolt. Mercedes Moeller, assistant varsity freshman volleyball, $3,114, replaced Jarek Nabon. Carrie Weeman, assistant varsity gymnastics, $3,114. Michael Rickey, assistant varsity football, $3,332. Tom Nielsen, assistant football, $3,332. Elizabeth Gores, cheerleader advisor, boys and girls basketball, $1,778 for each sport. Riley Yankee, middle school basketball, $1,718. Dan Hall, middle school basketball, $1,718, replaced Devin Bruna. Matt Gross, head to clam, $3,332. Educational adjustments we had over the summer. Jessica Dawson from a BA 15 to a master's, $49,756. Devin Bruna from a BA plus 30 to a master's, $49,875. Nicole Troxel, BA to BA 15, $47,223. Kim Bruns, BA to BA plus 15, $45,596. Nicole Gabriel, BA 15 to BA 30, $49,893. Tara Lessinger, BA to BA 15, $45,798. Jerry Yonke, BA to BA 15, $45,854. Jerry Kamabon, BA 30 to M to a Masters, $49,875. Rachel Dawson, BA 15 to BA 30 at $47,017. And then lastly but not least, contract changes. Jerry Kamabon add middle school volleyball level 4 at $1,778 and remove assistant volleyball at $3,223. Jill Rickey add assistant varsity basketball at $3,114. Remove middle school basketball at $1,778. Sandra Grogan add one act play assistant at $1,718. And assistant spring play at $3,114. And Melissa Larson, middle school basketball, $1,718. Remove Devin Bruna, middle school basketball, $1,718.
So those are the personnel actions. I think next we'll take a motion second, then we can have any discussion on the consent items. Motion and a second.
So moved.
Is that Ms. Schultz? Okay. Second?
Second.
We'll go with Mr. Nelson. Further questions or discussion? Consent agenda items.
I'd like to have some further clarification as to the marching band and why there are still 2 staff members for the marching band for a program that has over 60 students on average, which is larger than any of the athletic sports.
Well, the info I can give you tonight is we were approached last year to add an assistant position, which we did. These are the positions that we had open right now, so these are the positions we filled. If there needs to be further discussion, I'm open to having further discussion on it. But these are the ones that we had available and open right now, so that's the ones we filled.
I think if we look back at the minutes or go back and watch the video, I brought this same issue up. And it was discussed at that time, the same meeting, that the administration would have a discussion with the marching band director about their needs.
There were discussions that I know took place. When it was brought forward to add an assistant marching band, we did that. Beyond that, and we're open to further discussion on it, but that's the position we have right now that to be filled. I'll gladly meet. So, whatever the board would like.
But I just think that the ratio of staff to kids is in the neighborhood of 1 to 30 for marching band, and in the neighborhood of 1 to 10 for football or for track and field. I'd like to see something a little bit more comparable.
I would say in that defense of that, however, is that that is a paid position. That's part of her job. Football is an extra activity that teachers take on, as well as track and field. So I think we have to keep that in mind when we're looking at adding additional assistance to the budget.
Well, the marching band actually does fundraising to pay for their assistants.
Right.
Do any of the other athletic teams pay for their assistants to prepare for the season?
No, not that I'm aware of. We do.
They do-
Mitch, you
They do
know.
some of the summer stuff, but beyond that.
And the booster club, I believe, pays for 1 or 2 football assistant coaches.
To go from 6 coaches to 8 coaches, they need to pay for the additional 2. And how many additional staff members does the marching band pay for during the summer?
I don't have it. The boosters haven't shared that, I guess, so I can't answer that. I'll gladly look into it. That's all I can tell you tonight, I guess.
Further questions or discussion on the consent items? Hearing none, Mr. Brooks. Call the roll, please.
Nelson,
Aye.
Hanamichael,
Aye.
Schultz,
Aye.
Kappeman,
Aye.
Bundy,
Keith? Aye.
Okay. Very good. Avery,
Aye.
Farrell,
Aye. Declare motion of the consent agenda items is approved. We're going to have a hearing of delegations. We will be discussing obviously the back to school program. And does anyone wish to address anything other than the back to school program that's in the audience this evening? Seeing none, then we'll move on to the administrator's report. Mr. Jorgensen.
Just a few items. Girls tennis started on August 2nd. We had new teacher in service this morning. We'll have it again tomorrow morning for the new certified staff. Football and golf started today. All staff in service starts Wednesday through Friday, the 11th through the 13th. Volleyball and cross country will get started on the 11th. Open house is next week, Tuesday and Wednesday, the 17th and 18th. First day of school is scheduled for the 19th, next Thursday. I want to say a big thank you to the custodial staff. The buildings all look great. They've done a super job. Later on, we'll have a runoff election. This will be the third time we voted on this. I believe it came back 62 to 61 and 6 for a different candidate, so there's no supermajority, so that has to be voted on one more time. And I would recommend when we get to that point, we vote for Mr. Palmer again, Sturgis. Position's still open right now, part-time library. I would ask you to be looking at your calendars also for a possible goal-setting retreat date in late September, early October. So we'll be looking at that, and we can come up with some dates that we can do in some evenings that'll work. We'll set up that. I'll try to get back on schedule with that. And here in a second, DSU is going to present. So during that time, the board members will go down so they can see the presentation. We'll drop the overhead screen. After their presentation, I will go through the committee's back to school plan that's out there right now, so everybody can see that. Once that's concluded, they'll come back up and then they'll open it up to public input, public comments on the back to school plan. So with that, that's all I have right now.
Mr. Brooks, do you have anything? I'd like to report that Mr. Hanamichael and myself were at the joint convention for the school administrators and associated school boards. Mr. Jorgensen and Mrs. Guzzi were there also. It was a very good convention with lots of discussion and questions about exactly what we're dealing with this evening, and that is the back to school programs across the state. Then with anything else on the administrator or board members with reports? And I think what we will do is we will recess us down to the front rows and at this time turn it over to the DSU folks.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to come speak and present to you all tonight. For those of you I haven't met yet, my name is John Schemmel, I'm the CEO of the foundation. I've been back in Madison since January. We have deep family ties here. Both my parents grew up here, went to high school in Madison. My grandparents, Bud and Marcia Wink, still live in the same house. So while we've never lived in Madison, Madison has certainly always been home to me and my family. So excited to be here and appreciate the opportunity, like I said, to come talk to you about the campaign that we're doing. So I think just addressing 2 or 3 years ago, before I was here, Dakota State embarked on an athletics facilities campaign. Kind of came out of the gates with a couple large gifts, and then there's been some turnover in leadership, specifically in my position, and then of course COVID hit, which shut down a lot of things externally and nationwide. Saw a pretty significant impact on fundraising. So kind of put a pin in the facilities campaign, but we are here to pick up on that. And specifically talking about the Trojans Unite campaign and the athletics portion of that. So all told, we have a $100 million master facilities plan for athletics. That's a big number, and I understand the sticker shock in that. Part of that is just a little bit the reality of what things cost these days. I was a part of the campaign at USD where we built the new basketball arena, outdoor track and soccer complex, and outdoor practice facility, and it started on the dome. You add all of that up, you get into that $100 to $125 million category as well. So it's like I said, sticker shock, but just part of what things do cost today. So as we look at the facilities campaign, we do have a video here to share. It's about 3 minutes, but the high level things that are included in the campaign, and it is going to be chopped up into phases. It does include a new football stadium that the stadium portion will house a concourse with all new locker rooms, new weight room, new everything there. And then the field will be turfed, new video board, digital, everything. It'll also include an outdoor track that will be just to the north of the football stadium. And you'll see that kind of come together. And that's really what we're focusing on in the initial phase of this plan. So when you look at the $100 million, it's broken out really into 3 separate chunks. The first chunk is really what we're focused on right now, and that's about $35 million. And really, I think when you look at that portion of the project, it's really here, and we are here seeking just a continuation of the great partnership that DSU and Madison Central have had for years, right? Long preceding me, but sharing those facilities, but significantly enhancing them for both Madison and for Dakota State. So I'll play this video, and then we can get back to it after that.
It's a new era at DSU. Dakota State University is rising. Dakota State University athletics are rising to new heights of performance, of engagement, of fandom. Get ready to experience Dakota State University athletics in a whole new way. You are now entering DSU Trojan territory, an event center, indoor training facility, outdoor sports complex, and shared 2-level building concourse will become one consolidated complex, housing existing DSU athletic programs, potential future sports such as soccer and esports, and unique research and academic programs. The design's angular form, modern materials, and interactive spaces will further advance the innovative technology-driven environment at Dakota State University. Students, fans, and alumni will be closer to the action with a rotation of the football field and outdoor track. An outdoor plaza will gather faculty, students, alumni, and the community for special events, tailgating, concerts, and graduation. Light wells connecting walkways and glass partitions will visually and physically connect social spaces. The Hall of Fame celebrates our Trojan history. At night, the angled walls will become projection surfaces. Performance labs, training spaces, player spaces, and concessions will be shared between sports and classrooms. and meeting spaces will become club seating. Academic spaces, such as the Institute on Aging, will focus on improving quality of life for aging populations. A biomechanics lab will use technology to improve injury prevention and sports performance. The East Sports Center will combine technology and sport, so DSU Tech athletes can compete in games of skill with universities across the country. The complex will be available to host local, state, and regional athletic competitions from youth to collegiate levels. More visitors coming to Madison will boost area businesses and organizations. Gathering spaces inside and out, the concourse, exterior patios, tailgating areas, and an outdoor amphitheater will connect generations of Trojans. We are ready. We are rising. Come be a part of a new and exciting era of Dakota State University athletics.
So as we kind of recap that video, we look at the football facilities in particular. Like I mentioned before, field turf, increased seating. I do think just in some exercises that we've gone through with the architects and Jeff, I think probably the seating number we're looking at is more in the 3,500 to 4,000 range. But we will have private suites, we'll have a larger hospitality area. So fan experience will be a big part of that. Everything that we're doing in these facilities is multifunctional, right? So they're all designed to be in use for games and fan experience, but then also away from that, using for classrooms, meeting spaces, event spaces, all of that type of stuff. Certainly enhanced sound systems, and I think as you look at this, obviously this is all designed around Dakota State and Blue and the Trojans, but a little different look in the sense that we'll have a much more digitized fan experience, right? So as opposed to having dual scoreboards or worrying about things like that, we'll have the ability to flip a switch, right, and turn the video board maroon and other things like that. So there'll be a distinct home feel for the Madison Bulldogs as well, which I know is important to all of us. The concourse, again, gathering spaces, much more improved concessions, bathrooms, things like that. Not talking about porta potties and other spaces. Media suites, and one thing that we're all trying to get our heads around, both at the college level, high school level, and beyond, is esports. And you saw in the video there the esports space. That is currently where our esport athletes are competing. So we have esports at DSU now as our second biggest sport. Right? Football is at 110, something like that. Esports is at 108, and rapidly growing. So in this concourse, we're actually designing an indoor esports arena that will house or seat between 100 and 200 folks. So as we all get, I have a 5-year-old son who in 2 or 3 years will be schooling me on esports and what that's all about. And, that's just fascinating to learn and understand. And as we watch that grow and evolve, that'll certainly be included in this as well. And then this is just a little bit of a breakdown with the basketball arena. We've seen renderings with suites, without suites for basketball. But talking about 2,000 seats that'll be retractable, that way we can push it back and have, so if that's running, Jeff, is that running east and west there, the court? I think if you go north-south, then we'll have 2 or 3 practice courts when we pull the bleachers back, which is not only great for practice time, but you talk about summer events, things like that, the ability to access 3 more gyms, so youth sporting events, meeting spaces, all of these other things as well. A new softball and baseball complex that will again be turfed. The amount of games that can be played on turf in this climate is monumentally different. I think Dakota State this year, I know, was our first out home games in how many years?
Well, the first one we
First time we had more than one set of home games in 7 years this year. Obviously, when you have outdoor turf, that changes everything. You go down to Augustana, where baseball and softball both have turf. They're playing in March, easily in April. This is, I think, incredibly appealing for all of us, both DSU, Madison, and the community as well. When I was at Miami University in Ohio, we built one of these facilities, and it was our biggest, our most used facility. We would open that thing at 6 o'clock in the morning, and we wouldn't shut it down until 11 o'clock at night. And Miami athletes were in it for about 5 hours. That was it. So these spaces are incredible for the community. If you look at what South Dakota State has, they have a full version of this. The events that go there and how busy those things are incredible. They just built a much smaller one down in Mount Marty, which is having the same impact on their community, high schools and college as well there. And one thing I better mention, or I know Jeff will get mad at me, is drone racing spaces. So drone racing is also a real thing that we're adding, DSU we're adding as a club sport this year, is exploding. Now, if you watch some of the sport channels, you can watch drone racing pretty frequently. So big things that are out there. Access and events, as we talk about seeking this partnership and growth, naturally everyone looks to the football field, but other things to note, like I mentioned, the track, esports, drone racing, intramural sports, baseball, softball, soccer, if and when added, lots of indoor, outdoor concerts, other activities. I think the other things to note are this space pictured here, that event space, when you start looking at things like theater, certainly adding turf fields that will increase our ability to spread our teams out, high school and college, then also increases the space for things like marching band, which I think will be incredibly important. And so all of that, the whole design around this is really to not only continue the partnership with Madison Central, but really expand it as we get into these new facilities and create new opportunities there. So those are just some of the events and access that we talk about. But additionally, I mentioned South Dakota State's indoor facility with their 300-meter track. They now host the NAI National Indoor Meet every year that we sponsor. So we, Dakota State, sponsor a national championship event in Brookings, South Dakota. That lone event that lasts, 5 days, has been 2 years in Brookings. It went down to Yankton during COVID because they couldn't have fans, and then South Dakota State was playing football last spring, so they couldn't host a track event. But the NAI sanctioned economic impact study along with the Brookings Chamber of Commerce in 2018 was the first year. It was a $1.6 million economic impact from one 5-day event. And then the following year, 2019, was 1.9 million. All right, so that's just one example of the type of events that can be brought to this community, especially when we have a high school or a school district partnering with a university to work together. So that's one example, but other things that I know Jeff and I have talked about, you talk about the SODAC 16, right? If we're adding these gyms that bring in 3 more courts, all of a sudden we become much more appealing, and 2, obviously, really nice gyms that can host, a couple thousand people. Maybe we have an opportunity for things like that. AAU tournaments, youth sports, all of these other things where we kind of eliminate the people that drive from Brookings to Sioux Falls, right, and drive right by Madison. Youth sports and youth activities are a huge industry in this state. We all know that, and trying to get as many of those here as we can. So there's incredible opportunity with access and events there. And certainly then the educational aspect with the Institute for Aging, the biomechanics labs. There could be partnerships between the university and high school, dual credits, bringing in kids over that are interested in learning in those areas. And then, like I mentioned before, I think just the recognition and making sure this will continue to feel like the home of the Madison Bulldogs. That would be an important part, understandably, for the community. It will certainly have DSU marks and all of that. We're not going to try to billboard it up like the current stadium. If you go to USD, look at their new facilities, SDSU theirs, Northern State theirs, they keep them much cleaner, right? There is signage, but not as much of it, but they digitize the rest of it, like I said, and you can turn it whatever color you need to on that day, so it will feel like a true home advantage for all of us. And then other things that can be included, A-frame signage, all of that type of stuff you can bring in to kind of replicate that. So it will still feel like the home of the Madison Bulldogs. And hospitality, sponsorships, revenue generating opportunities. We are selling suites that will help go into the cost of construction, but there will be opportunity for the school district to seek their own partnerships with that. And then additional hospitality as well, right? So the people that are investing in Madison, you have a much better fan experience and ability to provide hospitality for those folks. And I talked about the community impact and involvement a little bit specifically with the indoor national championship meet, but Northern State in particular just put out a study as well talking about the economic impact of their athletic events, which currently is providing $700,000 plus a year for their athletic events only. And they sanctioned that study because they just built up a new football stadium, did some other things there. So that's the kind of impact these things can have on a community. So really, as I mentioned, really we're seeking not only a continued partnership, but an expansion of it. This will be the home of the Trojans and the Bulldogs for years to come. The way they build these things are much different than they did in years past, right? I grew up in the Twin Cities, right? The Metrodome was built in 1980 and it was outdated in 1982. But if you look at the new Twin Stadium, if you look at the new facilities in Brookings and Northern and Vermilion, these things really are transformational, and they're built to last, right? So we don't foresee having to tear these things down and go after another $100 million facility in 20 or 30 years. We'll have to maintain and improve that, and that's part of our fundraising initiative right now. We'll have to replace turf every so often, but this is, really just a once-in-a-generation campaign, and we really do hope to see our partnership continue with Madison Central. And I think one thing of note, and I completely understand that there's a little bit of, this started 3 years ago, why the heck hasn't anything happened? We should be building right now. Aside from the excuses, which is really all they are, being COVID and leadership changes, all we can really control is this is where we are today, and this is where we're going tomorrow. What I can tell you is when I got here in January, we were around 14 million. We're at 18 million now. We have another 7-figure gift that we get to announce here in the coming weeks. So the momentum and the energy behind the campaign is back. And we need all hands on deck certainly to get where we want to go. But the initial chase is for this first 35 million, but I remind everyone the goal is 100, right? So hopefully we fly by 35 on our way to 100, and we certainly don't feel like we can or should do that without the support and partnership of Madison Central. So I'd be happy to take any questions, but thank you guys for your time.
Thanks. Give me 1 second to get things loaded up here, and thank you for coming tonight, presenting. We've got a great partnership with DSU, and we have some neat facilities, so we'll continue to have our conversations. Okay, we're gonna jump right into the back to school plan for 21-22. This is a recommendation we're bringing forward. I'll go through everything. Anything that's different from last year's in red, or it's crossed out, one or the other. So anything that's changed should be pretty easy to pick up on there on that slide. A number of the things that are added in red are requirements that we have to have with the ESSER dollars and funds that are out there. So some of this stuff that's added really isn't a lot, but it has to be on there, and I'll explain some of that when we get to it. I'm not going to read everything word for word, but I'll go through anything in red and anything crossed out, okay? The original plan was developed over a year ago, and we've made updates to 2021. So for example, you'll see where it says CDC Gov coronavirus, and it goes on about face coverings. That'll be linked on here because one of the requirements is we have to show how face coverings are used, okay? That's all that is. Whenever you see Dan Link, that stands for Dan Hall, you need to link it, okay? That's what that is, okay? Go down, in-person instruction is our focus. I think we all learned from 3 months off versus being in person last year, this night and day difference, okay? We want to be in person. In-person instruction is our focus. We may also offer the option to take coursework online from an outside K-12 Edgenuity vendor, just like we did last year. That will not be our emphasis, but we will offer that on case-by-case situation if needed. Okay. One thing along with that, student progress will be monitored on this online option and will be suspended if student progress falls behind administration determination. Last year, the vast majority did great, but there were some that didn't. We're making it very clear that if they're going to be on the online option and they're not going to keep on track and keep up with it, that option is going to go away. They're going to have to be here and either that or they're going to have to do an alternate schooling, because we're not going to have them just be on there but not do anything. And like I say, for a lot of people it worked well, for a few it didn't though. Contact tracing will be in compliance with what the South Dakota Department of Health requires of us. We'll have that linked. Rapid testing, staff and symptoms, just like we did last year, that was available for staff if they wanted to. It's the Abbott rapid test, that's still available. We offered that too for those students who were in quarantine after 7 days. They could take that, they didn't have to. But if they wanted to, they could be back in school sooner. I'm hearing now it could be even as soon as 5 or 3 days, but I don't have that confirmed. If that gets confirmed, we'll adjust this to reflect that. As things change, just like we did last year, we're going to change and try to make it so it works. But information changes quite rapidly on some of this stuff, and we will adjust. Counselors available for K-12 students. Community counseling services, part of the programs we have to put information on there as far as telephone and contact. Vaccination available. We're not requiring anybody to be vaccinated. Part of the plan requires that we have to have contact information on there if someone wants to go that route. That's all it is, providing information. Parents and guardians, things that we asked you last year, we didn't change anything. You know, if you have someone, a child that has some symptoms, keep them out for 24 hours with no symptoms, no fever. Okay? We're just trying to protect everybody. So here's what I think everybody wants to know about. We did post this. So again, level 1 green. We crossed out a lot of things last year. One thing from last year to this year is we do know a little bit more, hopefully. Okay? Every school went into this blind last year. Plain and simple. And if we erred on the side of caution, we erred on the side of caution, and so be it. We didn't know, there was no playbook. We put together what we thought was best. Last year, if we had a positive K-12, we were masks. Okay? Didn't matter if it was a positive in the elementary. We said K-12. This year we're saying differently. We're recommending differently. That each building has their own level. Elementary's one, middle school's one, high school's one. Okay? So we could have it last year. We did have a time when we had, I think, 14 subs with staff. And we were close to going online for a couple weeks. Same thing, if we'd have been in that, if we had this in place last year, that building would have gone to level 2, and then would have been a mass at that time, until we would drop down. So what we're saying is that our plan is level 1 is as close to being normal that we remember from a couple years ago as we could have, okay? If we have a situation, we're saying face covering's optional. Students that want to wear them, great. Staff that want to wear them, great. Those that don't want to wear them, great. Level 1, we don't have an outbreak, we don't have a high number. That's as normal as we can be, okay? We are saying, though, if we have students and staff from separate households, and why does it say that? We found out last year, as we looked at this, if someone in a household came down with COVID, more times than not, other members in the same household came down with COVID, okay? That was time and time again. So we're saying if there's a family that all of a sudden has COVID and there's 3 kids, and all 3 are in elementary, that's 1 for that building. If there's 1 in elementary, 1 in middle school, 1 in high school, it's 1 in each building. But we're not counting that as 3 in the elementary, for example. Okay? Because we saw that when it was in the household, that's what we would see more times than not, is that more people in that same household would end up having it. So then we're saying that in order for us to move to level 2, last year, like I say, if anyone was positive, we were in level 2. We never got out of level 2 all year last year. Okay? We're saying that in each building, if the number of active cases in that building gets above 1.5%, then we move to level 2. Whether that's for 3 days, 5 days, until that number drops back below 1%. So to give you an example, in the elementary, to get above 1.5, that would be about 8 students. We have 8 students in the elementary. I'm just using the elementary. You can use middle school, you can use high school, whichever. If we have that happen, then I think we better take a look and see what's going on, and we better get some more mitigation pieces in place. So the committee's recommending if it gets above that, that's when we would do that. To give you an example, last year, there would have been 2 weeks during the year for the elementary where that would have been above 1.5%. And of those 2 weeks, the vast majority were staff members. The other thing that's changed from last year to this year, you know, I have to go to bed at night worrying about students and worrying about staff. And I was really worried about staff last year because we all know how it's affecting adults more so than students. Okay? Staff have had the opportunity, if they chose, to be vaccinated. We didn't have that option last year until late in the year. So like I said, in the elementary, that had been 2 weeks there to have been mass in the elementary, if it was the exact same as last year. Having said that, I think with our staff being vaccinated a majority, I don't know that we'd ever get to that number. But I'm not going to say we would never get there. I have no idea. I hope you know that as an administrator and all the principals and everybody, we'd love nothing more than to be in level 1 every day. But I also think it's our responsibility, if we have higher numbers all of a sudden in a building, that we better take a look at it and do what we can to adjust. So that's the main difference in level 1 from last year. Level 2, same thing now. Level 2 is like last year, but we're saying that it's only because we're above 1.5% in whichever building. And once it drops below 1%, so in elementary goes from 8 down to 5, we're back in level 1. Okay? The other thing you have to keep in mind is a lot of times, by the time we get notified, so we're notified and this individual had tested positive, they may already be 5 days into it. Sometimes it was 9 or 10 days before we got information. Okay? So we had times last year, you probably saw that all of a sudden when we put our weekly numbers out there, we'd have some more cases that week, but then the numbers didn't always show that because the number had already cleared the protocol and we're already in past that time frame. That's the main difference in the plan right there. Is one doesn't put us into a K-12 mask, but 1.5% in the building does. Is 1.5% the right number? I have no idea. As we talk about it, we look at the numbers. That's if we have all of a sudden in the elementary have 8 students in a 1 week time frame. I'm not talking about we have one this week and the third week and they don't add up. It's when there's that many active at one time. What's being proposed. Okay. Level 3 and 4, there were no change. Level 3 would be as if statewide or whatever, even though the governor said she didn't shut us down, she shut us down 2 years ago. That happens again. We're in remote learning. Okay. If we ever get to that where we have to be away because of that situation, level 4 is just a hybrid where we slowly ease our way right back into it and try to get right back into person-to-person instruction. Transportation, hand sanitizer is going to be available. Face coverage required at 2, 3, and 4. It wasn't until 4 days ago that I could take level 1 off there. It was still on there by the federal dollars in order to have the ESSER money and those type of things. It was still there until we got clarification that at level 1 we did not have to have it required on buses. I'd still recommend if kids want, I would, because that's the one time where we can't space them a whole lot. But until about 5 days ago, level 1 was still on there because it had to be. It doesn't have to be on there now. Okay? Family proceed as possible. Out-of-town routes may no longer make in-town stops. I put the word may in there because if we happen to have a situation where family moves in right on the edge of town and it works in a route to pick them up and there's room, we're going to pick them up. Okay? Just giving us a little leeway. 1 or 2 additional in-town routes for few kids in the bus. We had 2 last year. That's still where we're at. Why do I say 1 or 2? Because finding bus drivers, unless John is interested, we'll hire him. Finding bus drivers is a struggle. So if anybody here is interested, please see me afterwards. Face coverage may be worn by bus drivers, and again, it was going to be they had to up until a few days ago. Seat behind, we move to level 4. Food service, again, a lot of this is pretty standard ways and gloves crossed out because they have to wear gloves all the time anyway. So there's really no reason they added in there. At levels 2, 3, and 4. And there again, we're even getting some information that possibly at level 2 with the food service isn't quite the concern it was a year ago. No outside visitors or guests at 2 and 4. Administration limited on guests at level 1. Why? Because we're going to ease back into this. Okay, we're going to ease back into it. Plexiglass dividers if we get to the level 2 and above. Just time frames as needed, whether it's for lunch, whether it's for recess. No self-serve salad bars if we get past that. That's, again, our plan is level 1 right now. Condiments, probably aware of this, but again, all student food service breakfast and lunch meals will be free for this year again. That's been put in and it's in place for this year. I don't expect it to be next year, but I don't know. But again, breakfast and noon meals are free. If they want to have seconds, then they have to pay for those things or additional items, second entrees or additional items. Technology, again, may wear a mask. General cleaning, again, it's just a link that we have to have in there. Building mitigation. The open house, scheduling over 2 days, we just found that to work pretty well last year to give more time with the parent to come in and meet with the teacher for 20 minutes and get to see the student to meet the teacher. There are some things, unfortunately, from the COVID that we've found that work well. And we're going to continue to do those and make them work well for parents too. Limited access, again, I talked about that. Hand washing poster, it's a requirement, we'll have a link in it. The cough one is how to cover, if you're gonna cough, we have to have that link in there. Recess staggered, I got that as administration determination of playground quadrants as needed. And again, that's only for level 2s and above. Added elementary, middle school and high school activities will be provided as possible, state guidelines. So again, just put elementary in there because there may be times that we have something scheduled for elementary and it's gonna work, we're gonna continue to do it. If there's something scheduled that doesn't fall into information we're getting from the Department of Health, then we're gonna have to not have it. Face covering is optional. And again, we have unless required upon administration determination. If we have a building that starts to jump, we're going to require it in that building. Delivery trucks, parent meetings if we're at level 2 and above. Added this up to the Department of Health in, my contact here. And the intent on this, as in last year, we'll make adjustments month by month if we need to. Or week by week, if we have to call something ahead of time to make an adjustment because we see a change that needs to take place, that's what we're going to do. What do we have on here? Tentative plan review right now in the December meeting, following June, in the December and following June, they will be scheduled on the agenda. There may not be a change to it. They'll be on there. One of the requirements is at least every 6 months, we have to review it. But like I said, we need to review it in 2 months or 2 weeks. That's what we're going to do. But it'll be on the agendas for those meetings in the event we're looking to make any changes. If you want, I can pull up the color chart too. All the color chart does is match up with this. I guess you're tired of listening to me. If we're good, we'll put the screen back up, the board will head back up, and then public input, comments that we want to share with the board. Again, this is a recommendation that the committee brought forward on how we should try to move into this year and make it work. And understand that the committee is trying to do what they feel is best for kids and best for staff. And that has to be bottom line. Our number one goal is our students and our staff that are going to be in here. What's that? A committee, we had committee members, we had 3 board members, we had the admin team, we had Madison Regional Health represented, we had staff represented, we had staff who were parents represented. I think there were 17 total that were on that. It's the same group that was on it a year ago. Pulled them back in again this year to look at what we had in place and make adjustments. Yep. The committee was by appointment. Last year I pulled together people because we were scrambling to figure out what we could do. So yeah, that's how I put it together last year. There's no secret to it, but yep. Well, I don't have the total enrollments yet, but they're up, so that's a good thing. Right now, I believe in the middle school and high school, I'd like to get above 1.5, that would be at 5. Yeah, just because there's less kids in those buildings. Students and staff, correct. Yep. But again, when you look at our numbers, we had 40-some staff last year that were positive at one point in time. And again, the vast majority have gotten vaccinated. Their choice whether they did or didn't. Hopefully that's not the concern it was last year. But it was a concern last year. We had some individuals that were hit pretty hard by it. With that, I'm going to have the board move back up. We'll open it up. Mr. Farrell will open it up to questions, input, whatever. If they're of me, I'll answer them. If they're of the board, whatever it may be. So we'll go from there, okay? Just give us a minute here.
All right. All right. Mr. Hall, could you come up for a second? We need to reconnect Mr. Bundy. We'll pause for just a second to allow us to reconnect Mr. Bundy. While we're doing that, though, I would ask, we'll go first to input from our constituents. And if you'd like to address the board, we ask that you please come up to one of the two microphones. Identify yourself, your name for us, please, that would be, and then try to keep your remarks somewhat short. But again, be sure that you have an opportunity to speak what it is that you've come to the board for. And we're just a second or two away from having Mr. Bundy connected, and all right, he's back in. So if anyone would either like to ask questions or make comments to the board, this is your opportunity. Please come forward.
Good evening. My name is Craig Hoffman, and I just have a couple questions. When you're talking about the testing for positive cases, is that dependent on if the parents take their children to the hospital to get tested, or how do you get to that point of knowing that it's a positive case, if that makes sense?
Yep. Can you hear me up there with this or not?
There you go.
I must have changed the channel. Can you hear me okay? Can lean over here? Those are cases that are confirmed by the South Dakota Department of Health. So we get confirmation, and last year the parents would confirm with us, but then in order for us to follow through, we had to contact South Dakota Department of Health, and they would confirm if it was a positive case or not. So it'll strictly be cases that are confirmed by the Department of Health.
And that's if the parents take their child to the hospital to get tested? I mean,
Right, the only ones that we'll have that come as a positive will be the ones that have been tested. If they're tested in a hospital or facility, it goes to the Department of Health.
mm-hmm. If they show positive,
Yeah.
then they get the information and it's passed to back to the school district?
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So the ones I talked about as far as being able to test, that was if someone is close contacts, they got to be out after the 7 days, or it may be only 3 or 5 now we're hearing. If they want, they can do the rapid test. Don't have to, but if they want to be back into the school sooner, if that would test positive, we then are required to report that to the Department of Health. And then in those cases, more times not the parent, followed up by going to the doctor to have them run a test as well.
Mm-hmm.
But our information comes from the Department of Health on positives.
Okay, so it kind of depends partially what the parent decides on whether their child's sick enough to go get the test, or that's up to them.
Correct. If there's no test taken, we have no information that we
Right.
get. The thing that we have is that if they're sick, they got to be 24 hours with no temp and no symptoms before they'd be allowed back in.
Whether it be cold or flu or just something minor.
Say that again?
Whether it's cold or flu, it's just that. Yeah,
Correct.
yeah.
It'd be with anything that right now, just during this time. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Others with questions or wish to address the board? I know as board members, we received several emails today on this. Come on down. I'm just filling space.
No, that's okay. I was going to say, I can wait for the emails.
You'll have to really lean in on that
Sure.
light.
Yep, that's fine. My name is Carrie Studer. I'm here tonight as a parent of 6 kids in all 3 schools. So you've got Studers all over the place. Back in person this year. I just wrote something. It's not a question. So we can all agree that in-person learning is in the best interest of our children and their families. And we also want to make sure that the school environment is as safe as possible. Masks are a simple effort that have proven throughout the past school year to substantially decrease risk and limit the spread of COVID in the school district. With a largely unvaccinated population and in an indoor setting, masks are simply the safest option. I am asking that the district follow recent recommendations from the CDC from the American Academy of Pediatrics and from the South Dakota State Medical Association, I'm sorry, I don't like talking out loud in public, and local physicians, and require masks for all students and staff in the upcoming school year. So thank you for your time and for all of your hard work.
Other questions, comments to the board?
Hi, my name is Brenda Hanley, and I would ask the board to consider keeping the masks optional at all times and at all levels. The reason being, based on research, that a single viron is about 1/10 of a micron in size. The pore size in a surgical mask is 200 to 1,000 times that size. So wearing a mask to prevent the spread of a virus or the contracting of a virus is similar to standing behind a chain link fence and hoping it will protect you from someone throwing sand in your face. And this is information taken from the CDC website as well. Part of the evidence shows that cloth face masks actually increase influenza-linked illness because bacteria is 50 times larger than virus particles. As such, virus particles can enter and exit through mask pores, but bacteria remains trapped in the mask, resulting in the mask wearer continually exposed to the bacteria. Dr. Fauci and his National Institute of Health studied pandemics and epidemics and concluded the vast majority of influenza deaths resulted from secondary bacterial pneumonia. The CDC shows that K through 12 mortality rate from or with COVID is 0.00003. We have now come to a point where the solution has become much more dangerous to our children than the problem itself. Add to that the psychological impact of wearing a mask. I'll just share a personal note. I come from a gigantic family. Started with 16 kids and one of them has 100 descendants already. So I mean, it's gigantic. I know of no one who died from COVID. I know 2 people who committed suicide during COVID. Wearing a mask has severe psychological effects. Our children need social interaction, and part of that comes from being able to see other people's faces and to share in other people's emotions. We have robbed them of that for a year. They are not at risk from COVID. They are not. They have better than a 99.99997% chance of surviving. Let's give them the chance to live and the chance to enjoy life. Suicides are up 500%, and we can help prevent that. I would also encourage you to look up the Nuremberg Code. Wearing of masks is considered only usable under emergency use authorization. According to the Nuremberg Codes established in 1947, you must have personal consent. You cannot mandate anything under emergency use authorization because it is considered experimental. That includes the wearing of masks. So by mandating it at any level, you are in violation of the Nuremberg Code. So again, I ask the school board to consider optional masks at all times. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to address the board at this point in time?
bit taller here. Hi, my name is Brianna Sagdahl. We're new to town. We fled from Portland, Oregon, and we're really grateful to be here. And I also want to say that I'm incredibly grateful for your plan. It makes sense. So I'm a mom, I'm an investigative journalist, and I'm the executive director of the Follow the Science PAC. And I feel like it's important just to get this out of the way now, because as I understand it, we're going to see cases. We're going to see cases rise. And so as I'm shaking, I hate public speaking, and I'm going to read this because I want you to commit to this plan. It is very important, and the science backs it up. Viral respiratory syndrome or viral respiratory pathogens historically naturally circulate throughout the year, waiting for bodies to become vulnerable and weak, like during the winter when vitamin D levels are low. Or like now with the mass vaccination program that's not working properly or as it was supposed to. I think we can all ask ourselves why we're nearly 2 years into this and we're still fighting it, right? Antibody-mediated viral enhancement or pathogenic priming is a condition that occurs when vaccines just don't work the way that they're supposed to. In fact, the first and only time the mRNA vaccine was tested prior to this pandemic was in a lab in 2014, at which time 51% of the ferrets who were tested upon died upon challenge to the coronavirus, and this was due to immunologic overload. This fact is responsible for the commissioning of the informed consent by the NIH on worsening symptoms, which was supposed to be and is supposed to be given to each and every individual, or made accessible to each and every individual who is currently getting the stage 3 clinical trial doses, which the vaccine is not actually approved. It's under, emergency use. So if this vaccine is so effective, why are we seeing breakthrough cases rising in the summer, prompting further discussion on another school year of masking children? So as amazing as you are and as amazing as this community is, right, we can't stop viral respiratory pathogens from spreading, just like we can't stop influenza, the common cold, respiratory syndromes, respiratory sensation virus, or anything else with animal reservoirs. Coronaviruses are aerosolized, right? And not only do they go right through the masks, but masks are packed full of bacteria and viruses. JAMA, or the Journal of American Medical Association, recently did a study and found that 68% of children had issues with not only masking, but also with cognitive function. The study showed that the value of the children with the lowest amount of carbon dioxide levels was still 3-fold greater than the limit of 0.2% by volume. A Florida lab tested masks that were sent in from parents and found 11 dangerous pathogens, including parasites, tuberculosis, diphtheria, meningitis, and the bacteria responsible for pneumonia. And here's the kicker. Although the test is capable of detecting viruses, including SARS-CoV-2, only one virus was actually found, and that was herpes virus on the masks. Here in South Dakota, we have one active case of COVID-19 in all of Lake County. And we actually have no idea if this case is even the Delta variant, which is why we're all really concerned, right? Because there's no test for the Delta variant. And in fact, 300 tests have to be sent over in a batch to the CDC's genetic sequencing lab in order to even be processed. We don't have 300 tests, so we don't know if we're dealing with Delta variant at all. According to the CDC's own data, they currently have no variants of high concern, none, okay? A variant of high concern would actually prompt an immediate investigation with the World Health Organization and another pandemic type of declaration. According to the CDC also, viral mutations occur naturally, not because of the media propagated talking points that the unvaccinated are causing continued spread. This simply is not backed up by the facts or the data. Even in areas and isolated contained quarters like the HMS Elizabeth, with 100% vaccination rates of the individuals on board, they still saw a sizable outbreak of 100 sailors. Similar to the outbreak in Massachusetts, where 74%, sorry, of recent cases are all the fully vaccinated individuals. I have a statement here from an immunologist I'm gonna kind of just skip over. Here's my bottom line. I have a lot to say. I'm happy to send you all of the research on this. I have studies to back up every single fact that I have asserted, and I have so many more that I'd like to address. As a mom, as an individual who is concerned for informed consent, I ask you to please keep this current guidance in place, and I ask that you honor the integrity and the bodily autonomy of the individuals in this community, recognizing that more than likely we will see cases rise. And the science is there to prove that natural immunity is actually the most effective way of stopping COVID-19. Anyways, I've taken up enough of your time, and I'll stop there. But I would love to send you more information if that's possible, please.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Others who wish to address the board?
Hello. I'm not British. I don't know. I just said it like that. My name's Abby Reberts, and I am a chiropractor here in town. More of just kind of the same. Mr. Jorgensen, addressed most of what I was going to say in here. So, first off, I wanted to thank you guys just for the position you're in. Obviously, I've known you guys have been in a tough spot, making tough decisions in the last year, and it's a heated position coming one way or the other. So thank you for just sitting where you're sitting and being on the board. But just like Mr. Jorgensen said, that we know we're in a different spot than last year. We're a whole different ballgame. We didn't know what we didn't know last year, and that's why we had to make the decisions. You guys made the decisions that you did, and we understand that. Now we know differently, just like we've heard. We know who it affects. We know a lot bit more about everything. So knowing that, I do think that the plan going forward is very sensible, and that still really conservative, that 8 in the elementary, 5 in the other schools are very low numbers to have to feel like you want to go back in mass. So still a very sensible number. And also, I know there's very smart people in here, very passionate people in here that have different opinions, but I hope that honestly we can all respect that even having different opinions, that we can still respectfully disagree. I believe that the plan set forth, again, appeases both parties, mask optional, so that families who feel that that is the best and safest route for their family can make that decision to send their children in mask, and those who believe that masks are not the best and safest route for their family to forego mask with the plan set how it is. So, coming from a physical health perspective, I'm believing that masks create a whole host of issues. But more than that, my concern is the emotional and physiological implications that we are taxing our kids with by putting them in masks full time. We have to agree that don't touch your friends, don't talk to your friends, don't look at your friends, don't come too close to them in contact with them is not a healthy perspective for our children to be in, and it is not a healthy learning environment, honestly. For children or adults, quite honestly. In practice, I talk to a lot of patients, a lot of friends outside of practice, and honestly, a good amount of teachers that have this same sentiment of feeling this anxiety, feeling this weight on them. And speaking of that, I saw a report recently that antidepressants and anti-anxiety medication have risen 400% over the last year. And again, going back to the feeling of teachers and acquaintances and friends experiencing this firsthand and having to, feel like they had to go on anti-anxiety medication because of all the decisions we have to make. My fear is that we are going to project that on children, and knowing that we're setting them up for the same experience and the same outcomes because we're putting them in that environment. So, and a side note from that, talking about teachers that I've spoken to and talked to privately, I asked a number of them to come to this and stand up and have a voice, and all of them said that they didn't feel like they could because they felt like it'd be held over their heads. So honestly, that's concerning to me too, just because I don't feel like that's a healthy environment, and worrisome to me that they feel like they can't advocate for themselves because they have a different opinion and it might be held over their head as a teacher. So, side note. Lastly, I guess I just say, even though I am a physician come from the health and wellness field, I come more as a mom, just advocating for my kids and what is best for my family and my children. Wanting them to have a learning experience that doesn't perpetuate lasting anxiety and fear. I wholeheartedly want my kids to be in this district. I want to support the school that my business resides in and that I reside in, but imagining, again, coming from what we know now, and imagining that same environment, putting my 5-year-old in his first experience in school, I just can't come away with a clean conscience to say that he would thrive in that environment. So please just stick with the plan and keep mask optional. So thanks for your consideration.
Others who would like to address the board? All of us as board members received a letter that the people asked for us to share with the people present. It comes from Emily Sprainer, a PAC, Dr. Laurel Jennings, an MD, and Dr. Laura Holford, an MD, all from Madison Regional Health. Dear school board members and parents of the Madison School District, as the local experts in healthcare, many of us have individually been approached to offer guidance on health and safety recommendations for the coming 21-22 school year. Together, we have penned this letter to offer our science and research-based recommendations. On 7/19 of 2021, the American Academy of Pediatrics published recommendations that everyone older than the age of 2 wear masks, regardless of vaccination status. They go into further detail stating universal use of masks is recommended, given that certain teachers must cross over to multiple classes, such as special teachers, special educators, and secondary school teachers, and in consideration of the new SARS-CoV-2 variants. At this time, this recommendation for the use of face masks includes staff and educators who've been fully vaccinated, especially for teachers with students who are unvaccinated, including pre-K, kindergarten, and elementary schools. School staff working with students who are unable to wear masks or are unable to manage secretions who require high touch, hand over hand instruction, and who must be in close proximity to these students should consider wearing a surgical mask in combination with face shields. On 7/27 of 2021, the CDC issued updated guidelines recommending universal indoor masking for all teachers, students, staff, and visitors to K-12 schools, regardless of vaccination status. Children should return to full-time in-person learning in the fall with layered prevention strategies in place. As healthcare providers, we trust science and research and thus stand by these recommendations. We strongly suggest that everyone in the Madison School District, including students, teachers, staff, and visitors, be masking at this time. If we allow students to be in school unmasked, the risk of exposure may be quite high. If a student is exposed, then the student will need to be quarantined for a minimum of 7 days. This could happen multiple times to a student, causing them to miss significant portions of the school year. Furthermore, masking decreases the spread of other illnesses which may cause students to miss school. Last year, we saw that masks kept our school absence rate down for COVID and all illnesses. Keeping kids in person learning and healthy is our goal. Guidelines and recommendations will change as case numbers change and hopefully vaccination numbers increase and age under 12 become eligible for the vaccine. Sincerely, your healthcare professionals that I described at the beginning.
Would you say who wrote that again?
I can. It was Emily Stainer of PAC.
Did she put her title? What's your
PAC,
Okay.
physician assistant.
Okay. And then could you read off the doctor's name?
Dr. Laurel Jennings, MD, and Dr. Laura Hofer.
There was 2 of them?
There were 2 of them.
And so how many doctors were up there at the hospital? There's 6. So 2 of the 6 signed, correct?
That would be correct, Steve.
Okay.
Last chance for public input before we have board discussion.
I don't know how much information you guys even have time to absorb, but I've had a couple different videos sent to me that we could certainly forward to you. There's a lady that was an OSHA employee for many years. She was, I can't even describe everything she did, but she is highly, highly certified. She did a whole video talking about the whole thing about masks. It's very, very detailed, and I'd be happy to get an email or whoever, or send it to the district, but I don't know how much information you guys want to try to absorb. I know it's a lot for you guys to even deal with all this, but
What was the basis of the videos, maybe, Mr. Hoffman?
it was a lot of, my wife watched part of it. I haven't watched it yet. It's about 50 minutes, but it goes into very detailed about masks and the breathing and what happens and how it affects the body and just many things. It's very, very detailed. I don't know if my wife would want to say anything or not, but she's watched part of it, and I just got it a couple days ago. But I just told it is excellent. It will dispel a lot of information, misinformation. Like I said, I just don't know how much you guys want. You got a lot of information coming at you, and I don't know. Like I said, you guys are in a tough spot.
We are.
I can understand that, believe me, because you can't keep everybody happy. It's impossible. So
That's definitely the truth.
yeah. So at some point, I just talk to one of you or whatever. If you want any more information, we'd be glad to send it to you, like other people have said. But it's on to you guys how much, or whatever. That's up to you guys. But I don't want to overload information that you don't have time to look at either. I can understand that. So
Okay. Thank you for the offer.
yeah, thank you.
Further discussion, questions by the board?
Can I make a comment, Tom?
Yes, certainly.
I just want to touch base on a couple of things. This will be my 24th year being a superintendent, and I can honestly say there have been issues throughout the years that you've had to deal with, and I can, without a doubt, say there's nothing that's come close to dealing with what all the schools are dealing with right now with COVID. Okay? When the committee met and we talked about 1.5%, did some think that was too low? Probably. Did some think it was too high before we go to level 2? Probably. I don't know of another issue I've ever dealt with where I take pride in finding middle ground and getting solutions. I really do. And if someone has that middle ground, I think every school in the state would love to have it. Okay? I suppose with masks in the morning and not in the afternoon, we make everybody mad. And that's not our goal. Our goal is to try and do what's best for kids. And every time someone gives us information on one side, someone else gives us information on the other side. And there's tons of information out there, and I wish we knew everything of what was right, what's not right. And like was said, I don't know how, we could spend every hour of every day, I don't know how we'd ever get to the bottom of some of it. So I do want you to know that when the committee made these recommendations, it was hard, just because of what is the right answer. and I wish I had it. I think every superintendent in the state was really looking forward to tonight because they were going through the same thing. But it's where we're at. And I'd like to say that we get a month from now and we can say, well, look, it's not an issue, we're at level 1. I don't know. But I'm not going to feel bad if we get to a point where we have to go to level 2, if it's going to be something that'll be beneficial. I don't have that answer. I do know last year as we looked at with mass and the ionization systems we put in, as I talked to many people and to the office staff, the number of flu cases and strep was about non-existent. Was that because of mass? I don't know. Was it because of the ionization or the different things that we put in all of our HVAC system? I hope that helped. It was a pretty spendy adjustment, but it was the right thing for kids. So I think, and again, I can't speak for board members, but this position is not taken lightly, and trying to come up with a plan that will work for everyone. That was something that was being very clear to the committee from day one. I don't know what we can do that everybody's going to like. It's not out there that I'm aware of. And if the school gets it and finds it, guess what? We're going to do it too. So we'll see how the year goes. And if we feel that 1.5 doesn't make sense, it should be higher, we'll adjust. If we think that, wait, no, we've had to do that in the building and it seems to be working, we'll adjust again. And we'll take input again, but some of these things, we're going to do what we feel is best at the time for the kids of our community. So just wanted to put that out there.
Other board members have comments, questions?
I'd just like to thank the committee because, I mean, I think this is a really good compromise on both sides. I think it's, my daughter told me tonight, she said you should vote for masks, but I like the plan that we have, you know, that, so I mean, even in my own household, we may not agree with this, but like Joel said, it's about doing the best things for kids, and you know, I might be a strong believer in masks. I think it worked well for me throughout the school year when I taught in one all year, but I understand everybody's point on both sides of it, but I think the big part that we have to do is if we do have to go to that level 2, I hope everybody who may or may not agree with masks will still be supportive of that move.
Other comments? I guess as a part of that subcommittee, I was very excited when I saw the changes that were coming forth. And I think those changes that have been made, first of all, we have to understand that they are dynamic changes. If we, as Mr. Jorgensen has already indicated, if those items or what we're doing right now isn't working, we will definitely be having another special board meeting. And that special board meeting will be taking recommendations either from that committee or the administration to see what it is that's going to be best for us to keep our students in the classrooms healthy and being able to learn and being able to be educated on there. And that's my own personal goal as a part of this. And I was very excited to see that we are going building by building and not district-wide. And I'm also very, excited that we're able to, at least as of today, not tomorrow, but as of today, we could start at level 1. Nobody wants to start today, but that would be where we would be at today. So I was very happy. We had representatives from Madison Regional Health, as Mr. Nelson indicated. I'm not sure there's total agreement within the health community in Madison or anywhere else as to what this is. None of us have ever seen anything such as this. I'm old enough to remember polio, and this isn't polio, but I'm old enough to remember polio, and I remember enough to going down and getting my arm punched, and then all of a sudden they came out with sugar cubes. So I've been there, done that, and I know people who suffered, and from that also is a part of it. Any other comments by the board? Then next, what we would do, we have a recommendation, not from the administration, but the recommendation from the Back to School Plan Committee before us. Is there someone who would like to make a motion that we approve that in a second, and then we can have additional discussion? So moved by Mr. Avery. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Hanemichael. Further questions or discussion by the board?
I just would like one thing to mention, to recognize the fact that our superintendent and principals, teachers, everybody within the school district last year also had a lot of anxiety. They worked weekends, nights, over their contracted hours to keep your kids safe. And so that has been their number one priority. It's been the school board's number one priority. And I just think that we need to keep that in mind too when we are approaching them, and that we treat one another with respect. And understand that we all have our various differences, but we can come together at the best interest of our children within this district. So thank you to the administration and to all the staff for everything you've done. It hasn't been fun over the last year.
And I'd like to thank all of you for coming out and expressing your opinions and being here. We don't normally see people at board meetings, so it's nice to have folks come and tell us what you're thinking and things. I know we're not pleasing everyone if we approve this. We haven't taken the vote, but I know we're not pleasing everyone, but we're going to vote what we think we need to best move forward for the district.
My name is Bibi Quinteros. We moved here 1 year ago from New York City. And we left New York City because our personal freedoms were attacked. And if you know of the recent decision making of New York City, it's coming even more so an attack on personal freedom. Keeping it short and simple, I think the answer is so plain as day as what you just said, is keeping the masks optional or at level 2 recommended. Only because I have friends in other school districts as Brandon and Sioux Falls school districts that last year it was recommended the whole year. We are one of the only school districts in South Dakota that required. So I would ask if you would please keep that in consideration for everyone's personal freedom of choice, since there is research on both sides for mask wearing. Please keep that into consideration. And I'm so grateful to be a part of your state and to be a part of your school district. And I would not want my son to not come to the school district again if masks are required. Thank you.
Here, I'm just going to add one more thing to this too. I appreciate that you guys worked overtime. I appreciate that you guys worked weekends, but it's not your job to keep my kids safe. Flat out. It is my job as a parent to keep my child safe. First and foremost. Second of all, the FDA is already decided that they're going to approve this vaccine over Labor Day. So we went from a 3-year period of testing something completely new to a 1-year period with absolutely no post-market surveillance. And as you read in that note, we're already talking about having this available for children 12 and under. Again, you guys are going to be faced with a very serious decision coming up here. This entire state is going to be faced with a very serious decision coming up here. And that is going to be whether our children are your responsibility and whether it is your responsibility to mandate a vaccine that is liability free. I have to pick up the pieces. I have to deal with that for myself and for my family for the rest of our lives, not you guys. And so I ask that going forward, you please, once again, I just beg that you please protect the rights of our bodily autonomy and our informed consent over everything else. And I just wanted to end with that. And I'm sorry I get very upset about this because I've had a past vaccine reaction and I cannot have this vaccine. I have a genetic MTHFR mutation and I cannot take these. It will kill me. My children have this mutation. Like I said, it's genetic. And I don't want to have left everything and everybody that I know in my family to have come to a state banking on the fact that you guys will uphold that for me and turn around within months of moving here to find out that it was all for nothing. So I just
Has
beg.
anybody said anything about mandating vaccines?
No, but I'm telling you,
None of us have
it's,
said that.
I understand that, but it's happening in Oregon, it's happening in New York, I'm just begging you, as the conversation comes up, just to remember that there are people who can't have it. That's all. Again, and I am not opposed in any which way to the guidance that you guys are about to vote on. I thank you for it, and I keep hearing that it might fluctuate, that it's dynamic, and I just hope that it stays in place. That's it. That's all. Thank you.
So we have a motion and a...
Just a point of clarification though, because in level 2, it's not recommended, level 2 is required.
Right.
You can get above that, I just want to make sure because it was mentioned recommended, but I just want to make sure everybody's clear on what the plan says right now anyway, the way it is being brought forward.
That's where we're going.
Okay.
Thank you. So the motion and the second are to approve the back-to-school plan as presented by the back-to-school committee. Is everyone clear on that on the board as to what we're voting on? There's no amendments to that at this point in time unless someone from the board wishes to bring an amendment forward. Seeing none, Mr. Brooks, would you call the roll on the approval of the back-to-school program, please?
Nelson.
Aye.
Michael.
Aye.
Schultz.
Aye.
Kaplan.
Aye.
Bundy.
He says aye?
Avery.
Aye.
Farrell.
Aye. Once again, thank you everyone for attending. I'm going to declare a 5-minute recess for the board. We will come back at 7:15. Second order of our regular board meeting, and we are down to item number 14 on our agenda. Consider approval of open enrollment applications 22-1 through 22-8.
These are all open enrollments. Most have siblings already going here. We would recommend that you approve these.
The recommendation of the administration is approve open enrollment applications 22-1 through 22-8. Is there a motion to that effect? Mrs. Kappelman, is there a second? Second by Mr. Avery. Further questions or discussion? Mr. Brooks, call the roll, please.
Nelson,
Aye.
Hanamichael,
Aye.
Schultz,
Aye.
Kappelman,
Aye.
Bundy,
Aye, he says.
Avery,
Aye.
Farrell.
Aye. Declare open enrollment applications. Next is the process of reviewing, we don't take action, but reviewing high school handbook, then the middle school handbook, and then the elementary handbook. Mr. Shaw, up front and center. But they may not be able to hear you on the broadcast.
There we go.
There you go.
The only change I have in the handbook for the high school is I added a virtual online piece in the handbook, essentially giving us that power to take kids out of it if they're struggled. We had some kids really struggle last year and they got to semester. Essentially what we did is we just put a policy in place just outlining how the virtual process works in the high school. So that's the only change I had in the high school handbook.
And that you have highlighted in yellow.
I did highlight it in yellow.
Page 14.
Yep, number 24.
Okay.
So.
Any questions on that? Otherwise, handbook remains the same. Dr. Cook, come on down.
Thank you. Good evening. I have several changes. I'm just going to match the high school in a number of places so that we have the same language going through the 6, 8, 12. So the dress code, page 8, is just now matching the high schools. So it's a change, but not a change necessarily for the district. The page 12, there is a student survey. Again, this is something that the high schools always had, but we're starting to see these same things become a thing for us. So I thought I'll just go ahead and add that and match the high school's wording to ours. And then Adam had the virtual online, so do I, and so does the elementary school. We changed ours just a bit. It's not quite the same wording because we don't do recovery credit and that type of thing. So we just changed it just a little bit to front about how and why we would accept virtual online learning, but that there is now a process there. So that's what we did on page 12 as well into the handbook. So that is new. That's the one new piece. Page 15 in the handbook, again, I just matched some of the stuff to the high school about expulsion and just put it in ours as well, so that it is just consistent along the lines. And same with page 19 on excessive absenteeisms. I just did the same thing so that we're all saying the same thing across the board. Don't have a lot of it, but it's just nice if it's all saying the same thing, I guess. I always believe the middle school handbook should be different from the high school book, but beginning over the years, I believe it's fine. I've given up. It's fine. We could be alike. So that's what I've got. Okay.
Any questions of Dr. Cook?
All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate your time.
Mrs. Guzzi.
I have very few changes to the elementary handbook. The one notable change is in elementary program alphabetical listing of online and virtual learning. It's a program we'll continue to offer at the elementary level in a very limited format based on need and requests by parents. And then otherwise just update in dates, times, and years throughout the handbook.
Okay. Questions of Mrs. Guzzi?
Thank you.
Hearing none. Then we have reviewed the 3 handbooks. Moving on to number 16, consider amending policy IGDKA, participation of alternative instruction students. Mr. Jorgensen.
In that policy then, this is just updating to get us in line with the state codified law. I'm just going to touch on the additions to it. Upon completion of the South Dakota Department of Education Alternative Instructor Notification System process, Madison Central School District will grant permission for resident alternative instruction students to participate in interscholastic contests without enrolling in any class unless participation in an activity requires attendance in a class. That'll be spelled out later. Line item number 2 is crossed out because that codified law no longer exists. Number 3, the parent, guardian, or other person in control of a child being provided alternative instruction shall notify the Madison Central School District Activities Director if the child becomes ineligible under South Dakota High School Activity Association or Madison Central School District rules. Item number 4, again, does not pertain anymore. Under item number 4B, in some activities, participation in the activity requires attendance in a class. This includes, but is not limited to, enrollment in an approved CTE class, to participate in FFA, band class, to participate in band, vocal class, to participate in choir. So as different organizations like at the Activity Association that require for all-state band and so on, you have to be part of that activity in that school. Those would still be in place. And again, that matches up with the new law. Item E, nothing in this policy confers any vested right in any student wishing to participate in any interscholastic activity to be selected for competition in such activity. An example there would be band. There's tryouts to be an all-state band, for example. So just because you say you're going to be an all-state band, you'd still have to go through this process. You're not automatically guaranteed because you're a homeschool instructor that you get to an all-state band. No different for if you're trying out for the volleyball team or whatever it may be. And then last thing, the remainder of the current season. In other words, a student who leaves an accredited school for any reason to enter an alternative instruction program shall be ineligible for interscholastic competition. It used to be a period of 1 year. The new law, for whatever reason, says the remainder of that current season of the sport or activity the student is participating in at the time, beginning on the day the student enters in the alternative instruction program. That may or may not become an issue as the year goes on for schools. But I'm asking for this to be amended as presented because we have to have a policy updated in place prior to the start of the school year. If we want to come back and visit next week, we sure, not next week, how about next month? We sure can. But we do have to have one in place prior to the start of the year, and we did not get some of this final information until about 10 days ago. So we didn't have the opportunity to present it in July.
And since it's an amended policy, we are able to have our reading of the policy changes tonight and actually approve that. So we're within the realm of what our policies are. I guess at this point in time, I entertain a motion to approve the policy, and then we can certainly have some discussion following that.
So moved.
Mr. Hanemichael, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Avery. Further questions or discussion on the policy?
Well, I think the fact that we are being forced into updating this policy does not sit well with me. I think our state government has let us down. They have taken away our local control with this particular codified law. And unfortunately, we are being forced to vote to approve this policy change. And that does not sit well with me. School boards are supposed to have local control, and this takes it away.
I guess I have a question for the administration. How many people, or how many students in the past year would have this impacted?
I don't know, because in the past year, if they took one period, they could participate. We did have, this off the top of my head, I'd have to ask Ms. Brick, I know we had one for sure. 2 that took one period and participated. Will we have more? It being 0, I don't know. We'll find out. They have to contact us to let us know.
And you haven't been contacted yet?
I know we have 1. How many, Ms. Ricky? 2 additional. 2 right now. 2 additional or 2?
2 right now.
2, still 2.
I'm still waiting. There's a couple other that I'm assuming will.
Yeah, there may be more, but that's where we're at right now. Tomorrow could be a different number. But yeah. But again, this is to get us in line with the new codified law.
What if we vote no?
We got an issue because we're not following the state law.
So what will happen?
I don't want to know, and I don't really know,
Let's
but I'm
find out.
pretty sure that it may,
Separate that one and vote no?
it could come back to do something with funding, I don't know.
Let's find out. Because for sure they're gonna talk to you. They're gonna.
I guarantee they're going to talk to me, yeah. But it's where we're at. And again, we can bring more discussion up in the legislative session, whatever. I just know that prior to the start of the year, by law, we need to have something in place. And this meets that standard.
And this came with joint work between South Dakota High School Activities Association, correct?
And ASBSD and SASD.
So policy did.
So you're asking, so you're gonna ask students that partake in athletic events to play against people that are on medical marijuana?
No, we're not there. Medical marijuana is a total different issue that will be coming up next. This is the homeschool participation.
All right, sorry, I got ahead of myself.
That's coming out. That's coming out.
You're a little ahead, Steve.
All right, sorry.
All right. Other questions, discussion on the policy IGDKA? We have a motion and a second. Mr. Brooks, would you call the roll, please?
Nelson.
Aye.
Michael.
Aye.
Schultz.
Aye.
Kappelman.
Aye.
Bundy.
He's an aye.
Avery.
Aye.
Farrell.
Aye. Declare that the policy IGDKA is approved. Next is consider changing policy JHCDE, medical emergencies, to policy JHCDF. Mr. Jorgensen.
Yep, this hopefully will be a little bit easier one. The only reason for wanting this change is because the new, excuse me, medical cannabis policy that ASBSD and SASD worked on, and we align as much as we can with our policies with them, has those letters of JHCDE, and I'd like to keep that the same. So this isn't changing the policy, it's just changing the call letters on the policy so we can use the same letters that deal with medical cannabis to align with ASBSD.
Recommendation is that we change the policy on medical emergencies to JHCDF. Is there a motion to that effect? That was it? Mrs. Kappelman, second?
Second.
By Mr. Avery. Further questions, discussion? Call the roll if you would, Mr. Brooks.
Nelson.
Aye.
Michael.
Aye.
Schultz.
Aye.
Kappelman.
Aye.
Bundy.
He's an aye.
Avery.
Aye.
Farrell.
Aye. All right, that takes us down to item number 18, which is the policy JHCDE, administration of medical cannabis to qualifying students, and then a JHCDE-E, which is the medical cannabis administration plan. Mr. Jorgensen,
It's a lengthy policy. And again, this is a policy that's come out right now from the Associated School Boards along with SASD, working on this. It's 3.5 pages. Bring this forward for us to have some time to look at it. I'm not even saying that we'll go for an adoption next month, but we will have to have a final one in place prior to November 18th, I believe it is. The biggest parts in here as far as decisions to make. With the medical cannabis, there was the opportunity if schools wanted to house it on our premises. I'm in the opinion we do not. Or if we wanted to designate someone in the school to administer it, I'm in the opinion that we don't want that either. It will have to be a person that's identified by the parent. The other part on the JHCDE-E simply is the form that would need to be filled out by the parent guardian to get this whole process started. We don't have the finalized rules from the Department of Health, and we won't have them until November. That's why I'm saying I'm not even so sure in September or October before we'll even look at approving something. It may change, and depending on what comes back from the Department of Health, it could anything changed dramatically yet. I just want it out there for you to read over and to see on where it's at, and we'll have more discussions on this September or maybe October or maybe all 3 months, I don't know. And again, until we have more information from the Department of Health on their final rules, it's hard for us to really move too fast on this. We will not have to worry about, I know that I've been told Flanders handed out a number of cards already. Unless the cards are state approved, they're not recognized by the state right now, so that will not be an issue for us. There may be some folks moving from out of state that may have a card. There again, until they have that card approved by the Department of Health, we don't recognize them, and they won't have their rules in place until November 18th. So we've got time. I just wanted to get it out there that this is on the horizon of things we're going to have to be looking at.
Those cards have to be approved by our South Dakota Department of Health?
Correct. Yes. Yeah, so they can come in with one, for example, from Colorado right now, doesn't matter until it's approved. And I believe, don't quote me on this, if there's a temporary, if it's out of state, like 6 months. In-state ones, if they get them, I think are going to be a year, is what we're hearing, but that's nothing's in concrete yet. So just putting it out there, we're going to have to look at it and how we're going to move forward, and we're utilizing Associated School Boards on their recommendations, and we can make changes as we see fit.
Any impact for as close as we are to the Flandreau operation?
Potentially. We don't know. The thing will be there is the cards that are distributed, what the state decides to use to approve them or not. Once the state approves them, and then we've checked with what we're hearing from Colorado and some places, is that the number of students actually in schools that this is dealing with is not a huge number. It doesn't mean it won't be here. We don't know. Yeah, I wish I had that answer, Mr. Avery, but I don't.
Last week at the conference, I mean, they had a panel that kind of went over this and the cards, and so I mean, I think they're still trying to figure stuff out too. So.
It was Secretary Standerson from the Department of Ed, and then it was Dan Swartos from the South Dakota Activities Association, and then the legal counsel from the Department of Health. And as we walked away from that, and this one definitely more questions than there are answers that have been defined yet. So, but the real takeaways, I think, were that nothing is going to be in place until November, when those cards are first issued.
How will the use of this affect Dr. Officer Gant's job?
Well,
so if he has, okay, go ahead.
Yep, first thing, if you follow through it, if a student has a medical cannabis card, they've got to go through the steps of coming in, filling out all the paperwork. Understand, it's not a prescribed prescription from a doctor. In other words, it's for therapeutic use, so it could be for a lot of different things. They're going to have to describe on there the amount, how often, caregiver who's going to administer it. We just have to designate a place on school grounds where it can be administered. It can't be in a vape form. It can't be in a smokable form. It's got to be basically in an edible form. That's why I'm saying I would strongly recommend, we have no desire to store it anywhere on our grounds or to administer it by any other staff members. I'm hearing right now that from the medical field that nurses are being told, don't even think about being designated to be the person for that. It just goes against, because it's still federally not a legal drug. There's more questions than answers right now. But for Officer Gant, so anyone that would have medical marijuana or whatever hasn't gone through the process of having the card, and they can't have it on school grounds at all, as long as they can't have it in their backpack, that'd be no different than it is right now. The only one that can have it would be the caregiver coming in to administer it. That's it. If it's on a student here, then it's illegal.
Okay,
no different.
Even if they're 18?
Even if they have a card, doesn't matter. It can't be stored on here. They can't have it in their possession. It can only be a caregiver over the age of 21. That can be a parent or someone designated as their caregiver. There will be more questions, believe me.
I have a whole bunch.
Yeah.
I have a whole bunch that I will ask right now.
Further questions and by anyone else other than Steve? I think the big point is we're going to probably see this document even change prior to the time that we would have a second reading. Is pretty much what we were hearing at the convention also, is that this is a draft that has been developed, but certainly it is subject to much revision.
Yeah, and whether it comes forward next month or not will depend on if we have any other information that's changed what's in here. And we may or may not, so it may not be till October, for example, once if something has to change. But I want it out in front of you, we'll take a look at it, and then we can go from there.
Are we ready to move on? All right. Next, it will be Mr. Brooks' review and discussion of ARP.
We gotta jump back
Oh,
to
the runoff
19.
lecture. Oh, trying to move us
We still got
along.
more policies.
Pardon?
We have more
We've got more policies
Number
on
19.
19 now.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Trying to get, move us along. All right, number 19 is GBCB, use of alcohol and other drugs by employees. Should we do them all together?
Sure.
Then JFCH, alcohol use by students, drug abuse by students, chemical abuse, and JHCD, administering medicines to students.
And the only reason I threw you a curveball and had to be two different items was because these policies all now will have to be adjusted because of the policies in 18 for the medical cannabis. So as a result, same with these. I'm not saying that they have to be in place by next month, but we got to get it started. So for example, GBCB, the first part's the same. I did add, should the affected employee be the superintendent, she or he will report to the board no later than the next regular meeting of the board. That was an ASBSD's policy. We didn't have it in there. Second paragraph, we had an impossible referral for prosecution. Big change down below is that if there is a reason to suspect that a staff member is under the influence of alcohol and or illegal drugs, a staff member will not be allowed on school property or to participate in school activities. Staff members will be subject to discipline for arriving at school or school activity under the influence of alcohol and or any illegal drug. For the purpose of this policy, illegal drug means narcotics, drugs, and controlled substances as defined in federal law or state law. Illegal drugs also includes any prescriptions or over-the-counter drug that does not meet the following criteria. One, the employee has a current valid prescription for the drug or the drug is sold over the counter. Two, the drug is used or possessed for the purpose for which it was prescribed or sold over the counter. Three, the drug is used or possessed at the dosage prescribed or recommended. Four, the drug is used or possessed consistent with the safe and efficient performance of the employee's job duties. Any staff member who is taking a drug or medication, whether or not prescribed by the staff member's physician, which may adversely affect the staff member's ability to perform work in a safe and productive manner, is required to report such use of medication to his or her supervisor. This includes drugs that are known or advertised as possibly affecting judgment, coordination, or any of the senses, including those that may cause drowsiness or dizziness. There will be more policy that we'll be bringing forward once we get more information as far as medical cannabis and staff members as well. Because we could have one staff member that would have the card. That information isn't figured out yet. DOH hasn't got it in place yet. This is just another one that ties into the last one. So then when I go to JFCH, students who use prescription drugs or medical cannabis authorized by a licensed physician do not violate this policy if the students conform to the prescription and appropriate school policies. Then we added in there later e-cigarette nicotine delivery device. But so basically it's saying if they've got a medical cannabis card that's been filled out and authorized by the state, they're brought to the school, they're using it for treatment or whatever, It's not a violation of general training rules because it's illegal. It's legal for them to have it because of the car.
Okay, so can we make a policy that says if the dosage affects the behavior
Yep, there's still
of any
something.
medicine then? So that way you can have something so, or somebody overdoses on that medical thing, if it was on anything, you would preempt it and just create another policy that says, hey, if you want to enjoy this medicine too much, then you can't come to school?
Well,
In
same
effect,
thing.
affect the teachers and the students? I mean, it's like...
So I know
this
more
is
about
silly.
medical cannabis than I want to know, to be honest with you, but I don't know enough. The other part with employees that will be coming out is it'd be no different than in alcohol as far as being under the influence. The difference being they haven't determined, or I have not seen what that line in the sand is of what's under the influence with marijuana. We don't have that yet. Those things will all come into play with this. That's why I'm just preparing you as best I can with what we know right now and what we have to have in place in order to protect students, staff, district, and that we're following what the law is, because the voters voted this in 70-some%. So
So what about
it's reality.
the bus drivers?
Same thing, that's no different. Right now, they still have random drug testing
Right, I mean,
Because they
and
have a
that.
CDL.
because they have a CDL.
Right, they have the CDL, but do we have to address that, say that somewhere in here, that?
Those are more of the things that wait for ASPSD, but
Okay.
it says in one of the, and I don't have them on from you, that does not pertain, that's still,
No, it doesn't.
if they test positive, they test positive, period.
So will we allow somebody who's on, been prescribed medical cannabis to
Drive a bus.
drive our kids up to the community center in a school van?
Again,
Because I know how I would vote for that policy.
yeah, there will be fine lines
It's pretty
on
straightforward.
what they consider, and there again, another bridge will have to cross, and along with every other school in the state, trying to cross this bridge too, and not even cross, we're trying to build the bridge right now on how we get there. So, yeah,
Yeah.
again, I don't know that we'll look to adopt this next month because I won't have enough information, I don't think, or we can maybe adopt what we have so far, but then be ready for it to be amended the following month potentially. I don't have the answers right now. And I hate bringing it forward, but that's what we know right now. So that's, oops, go ahead.
And we do need to have a first reading
At some point.
at some point, and so then with the first reading, when we come then, if it comes in October and everything has to be in place in November, or even if it comes to us in November, we'd have to have a special meeting to have just this first reading.
So how are we supposed to have something in place if the Department of Health stuff isn't due until November?
And we don't have to until then.
No,
We
I
just
know,
we
but
just have to
how-
have it in place. Because November 18th is when, I believe it's the 18th, don't quote me, it's the 19th, but I think it's November 18th is when they will have their rules in place and they'll start
Yeah.
approving cards, is my understanding. So that's the first time potentially we could see a medical cannabis card.
Okay, so but when is our stuff due? When do we have policies?
Prior to November 18th.
Yeah, and we're gonna have those before the Department of Health
I
stuff
think
is
the
up.
last I don't have the date from me, I want to say it was in October. Late October. But again, I'm not going to swear on that.
Refresh my memory of who's on that committee from this board, on this policy committee.
Oh, I thought you meant the medical
No,
cannabis
on the policy.
committee.
Who's in the policy committee? Do you remember? Because I'm pretty sure we're going to be
I
getting
think
phone calls.
Rich, I'd have to look up on that deal. I think Rich is one and Tom,
Rich.
Tom and Lori maybe.
Lori.
Tom and Lori.
I believe it was right. So once I get more information, I'll bring it forward, but that's all I got right now. And we just got that on, I think when I was in Chamberlain, like July 23rd or 4th is when we finally got this from ASPSD because they didn't have final from DOE until that time. So then one more.
So much time to comment.
Administering medicines to students, adding, for purposes of this policy, the term medication includes both prescription medication and non-prescription medication, but does not include medical cannabis. The administration of medical cannabis shall be in accordance with the board's policy on the administration of medical cannabis to qualified students. And that reflects it back to the other policy that's in place. That ends my scripture on medical cannabis for tonight, but that's what we know.
So those would be first readings of those policies, more to come. All right, we have a runoff election. I think we've done this before.
We have, this will be our third attempt. The first one, if you remember, there was someone that was on the ballot and that retired, so that was invalid. This came out last time, and I think the vote was 62 to 61 and 6. I think it was one person got 62, one got 61, one got 6. There wasn't enough of a majority, so there's a revote. For just those top two, we voted for Todd Palmer of Sturgis last time. I would recommend that we vote for Mr. Palmer of Sturgis again to represent on the Activity Association board.
So recommendation is that we cast a vote for Mr. Todd Palmer. Is there a motion and a second to that effect?
So moved.
Mr. Hanemichael, Mr. Avery, Mr. Brooks. Unless there's discussion? Okay.
Nelson,
Aye.
Hanemichael,
Aye.
Schultz,
Aye.
Kaplan,
Aye.
Bundy, Avery,
Aye.
Farrell.
Aye. Declare that Mr. Palmer, one more time, is our candidate.
Maybe the third time's a charm, so we'll see.
Next is the review and discussion of the ARP ESSER plan and budget. ARP ESSER general grant budget is our link on that. So
I'll let Mr. Brooks talk here in a second. Same thing, we have to have something in place by August 20th, and we'll have this linked. This is just the start of it. We haven't even talked about dedicating all these funds, but we need to start the discussion, and if we come forward with actual dollars, then that will be obviously approved by the board. But this is the starting point of what's required by ESSER for us at ARP to have this started prior to the 20th. So, Mr. Brooks.
I'll just clarify, so the two pieces that are linked, these funds that are available to us, we can use them from expenses from last year, and then this year, the next 2 years. So there's a 4-year period that we can use these funds. So that's not our budget that's on there, that's the budget of the ESSER 3 funds. Our budget will come forward just like it has in the past. When we came with the ESSER 2, we had a sheet with the budget amendment. We had exactly what we were spending on. What we're submitting here is what we think we'll be using some of these funds for in the next few years, so that the state can get guidance on what schools are doing. We have to have it in by 20th of this
August
month.
20th, yeah.
So what we did with the ESSER 3, we kind of continued on from our ESSER 2. Our ESSER 2 goes for this year and next year. Then we use ESSER 3 to continue into that following year with the similar type programs. And then a few things that didn't make, that we had left over from the ESSER 1, ESSER 2, we put into this plan on there. So this isn't anything we're held firm to. This is just submitting so they kind of know what we're looking at. As we get firm things, we'll bring them to the board for approval, adopting our budget, and then amend this budget to the state.
And one requirement is 20% has to go towards learning loss. So if we get additional teachers this year in some areas we're going to do after school, that's one of the requirements on this.
And we didn't allocate the whole amount. We just have to get a start on the plan, and we can allocate it each year or anytime through the year.
And we can amend it too.
So we'll see this again too.
Yeah, more than once, I'm afraid.
All right, we have a review and discussion, further discussion before we have a motion to move on. Any further discussion? Not that I would have a motion to, are we approving this or acknowledging?
I think we're
approving.
Okay, to approve the ESSER General Grant Management that has been presented to us. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Mrs. Schultz, is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Hanemichael. Is there further discussion and/or questions? Mr. Brooks?
Nelson,
Aye.
Hanamichael,
Aye.
Schultz,
Aye.
Kampman,
Aye.
Bundy, Avery,
Aye.
Farrell.
I declare that we have approved that. Item number 22, Department of Education application for a waiver from administrative rule for geometry this time.
And what this waiver does is just gives us the option to perform an end-of-course test to give credit. We've got if a student moves in, for example, that's taken it at a younger time frame, in order for us to grant that credit. This waiver gives us the ability to give them an end-of-course exam that they would have to pass before they would get that credit. So it's just an opportunity for us to utilize, because we may have more students moving in from other areas, other states. This is a way to have the option of giving them geometry credit, but they would first have to show proficiency in it before they would get credit.
The recommendation would be to approve the waiver for administrative rule. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Lori, okay. Mrs. Schultz, second. By Mr. Avery. Further questions, discussion? You are recognized, Mr. Shaw.
I appreciate that. I will probably bring more of these to you, just so we have them covered in the high school, because like Mr. Jorgensen said, we're probably going to have some of these where we're going to need to be able to give them credit, and it's got to come from an accredited high school, and in this situation, it wasn't an accredited high school, so the child wants to take the geometry for credit, so we want to make sure that we can keep them moving. Our goal is never to hold kids back if they want to excel. So.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification.
One of the things I noticed in the application in section 6, it says student scores at 85% or higher. That seems a little high for first and second sort of end of semester exams to show proficiency. I would like to see the proficiency number a little bit lower.
Yeah, that's actually the state rule. They have to score 85 or higher.
Really?
Yep.
Other questions, discussion? We have a motion and a second. Are we ready to vote? Mr. Brooks?
Nelson,
Aye.
Hanamichael,
Aye.
Schultz,
Aye.
Kampman,
Aye.
Bundy, Avery,
Aye.
Farrell.
Aye. Very good. That turns us to executive session. Either of our media people have any questions?
Judging by the smile on Chuck's face, I think that was yes. For who?
Past class with the 60s.
No one would ever get challenged by credit, challenged by taking the final exams.